told you guys that I've been doing a lot of digging through the Bible, through the Sumerian tablets, Akkadian tablets, Babylonian tablets, Hindu religion.
I'd say if you've been doing that much reading, you better know what you're talking about. So let's see what you got.
What group of Christians do you know, a little sect that was killed off during the 4th century by the Roman Catholic Church? Is because there was a certain sect called the Gnostics, and they were killed off by the Roman Catholic Church.
So this is nonsense. First off, there was no group called the Gnostics. Gnosticism is a blanket term we apply to many ancient heretical Christian groups, like the Sethites, Valentinians, Basilidians, Marcionites, Manichaeans, and other various Gnostic groups. None of these groups call themselves Gnostics. That's an umbrella term we use to classify them all, but they all had various theological disagreements. Gnostic groups were also not killed off in the 4th century. John Turner says that forms of Sethianism survived well into the Middle Ages, Manichaeism became the state religion of the Uyghur Empire, and other groups like the Paulicians or Bogomils weren't even founded until well after the 4th century.
By the way, the Roman Catholic Church, they're actually just the Old Testament revamped with the Torah.
Torah observers? Anyone out there? Can you comment on this? Are you all just Catholic?
The Roman Catholic Church felt threatened by the power that the Gnostics were growing.
By the 4th century, no. The various Gnostic groups at this point had very little power, they were reducing in numbers, and they were moving to regions outside of the Roman Empire.
Did you know that Valentinius, he was 3 votes away from becoming the Bishop of Rome?
For those who do not know, Valentinius was a 2nd century Gnostic heretic that started his own sect, and I cannot find any evidence to confirm this story. Tertullian tells us he was a candidate to be a bishop, but not specifically the Bishop of Rome. After he was passed up for someone else, in his anger he became a heretic and started his own sect. So he would not have been considered a heretic while he was a candidate to be a bishop. However, Athenaeus tells us an entirely different story on how the Valentinian sect got started, so we're not sure how accurate Tertullian's account really is.
Is it possible that these ones that were called Gnostics,
again, no one in the ancient world was called a Gnostic,
they actually knew the truth?
I would say it's very unlikely. And my question would be, which Gnostic group? Because there are various groups from the ancient world we have labeled as Gnostics, and they all had theological differences.
2 days later.
So the term heretical group was not coined until Justin Martyr, who was just a philosopher, didn't even have any ecclesiastical authority. Before the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, you had all these Christian groups, whether they were more esoteric, more Jewish in their beliefs with Torah, different things that were going on. They were all different sects, but they were never called heretical.
No, and you just got done telling us in your video that Justin Martyr used the term for heretics. St. Irenaeus of Lyons wrote a whole book called Against Heresies. In the opening line of Tertullian's work, Against the Valentinians, he refers to them as heretics. Gnostic groups and other sects were called heretics long before Constantine.
It wasn't until Constantine took power, he made the state symbol, the cross, to mix in with the pagan religion.
Constantine converted to Christianity. He did not mix Christianity in with paganism. That's just a modern myth that's perpetrated today.
At the Council of Nicaea, things started to change.
No, there are just so many myths about the Council of Nicaea. It was brought together to deal with the Arian heresy, with the overwhelming majority of bishops confirming the Orthodox position and siding against Arius. They also dealt with some administrative issues like the date of Easter, but Christianity did not change at the Council of Nicaea.
Constantine found that the proto-orthodoxy of the church was more in alignment with their governmental behavior and the way they could put people under control.
Again, just another modern myth. Constantine converting to Christianity was more of a liability, considering that most of the ruling class and army were pagan at this point. There is no evidence he converted because he thought it could help control the masses. That just doesn't make sense from an historical perspective.
So what they did was they killed off the Gnostics after establishing this.
Again, as I pointed out in my last video to you, this is just simply false. We have evidence of Gnostic groups existing well past the 4th century. You just can't repeat this misinformation and expect it to be true this time.
Why do I say this? Because the Gnostics actually outnumbered the proto-orthodoxy before this point.
So continuing this theme, That is also false. As numerous scholars will point out, Gnostics were always a minority group. And if Gnostics were a majority, how come we don't have any records of tens of thousands of Gnostic Christians being slaughtered from the 4th century? Because it didn't happen.